Hello everybody, and welcome to another PlayStation 5 review. I've got my carbonated beverage here. I hope you have one too, to sit and enjoy this moment with me, because I have finally gotten to play Spider-Man Miles Morales on a PlayStation 5. It's glorious. Am I late to this? 100%. Do I care? Not one bit. But I've finally gotten my hands on a PS5, so I finally got to play Spider-Man Miles Morales. I know this game was on PlayStation 4. I low-key wish I would have gotten it on PlayStation 4, so I could have popped the plat there and then popped it again on PS5, but I wanted to wait to play this game with the DualSense, and I am extremely happy with this particular game. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to review it here, and I'm going to make another video talking about this particular game a little bit later this week. But if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subscribed for more videos like this in the future. Let's get into it. So Spider-Man Miles Morales is a game that I was super excited about when they announced it for the PlayStation 5. When they announced the PlayStation 5, it was the first thing they showed off at the showcase, if you do remember that. And I'm glad I waited, okay, because I got to play this game in the performance ray tracing mode, and good Lord Almighty, is it fantastic to see this game running at 60 frames per second with ray tracing. God, it looks good. Now, there are also a couple other modes. There's performance mode, which gets you 60 frames, and I think it just takes away the ray tracing. I don't know what else is removed because I never touched it. I played this entirely in performance ray tracing, but there is also a fidelity mode that I kind of played around with for a second, and for me, taking away the crispness that was the 60 frames while playing this game wasn't worth it for what I got out of it, because I don't have a 4K monitor. I don't have anything that's really going to make this look outstanding playing in a fidelity mode. So for me, performance ray tracing looked fantastic, and that's what I recommend people play it on. And the reason I say this is because I know that 4K TVs are getting more popular and 4K monitors are getting more and more common, but most people are likely still rocking 1080. So that performance ray tracing just looks so freaking good. And this whole game just looks so good, especially the photo mode. I played a lot in the photo mode and it looked fantastic. I was so happy with it. Now, when they did announce this game, I did have some concerns. I had a fair chunk of concerns. I was worried that this was going to be just kind of a reskin of Spider-Man 2018, and this time you're going to play as Miles, but everything was going to be the same. You know, the way Spider-Man moved, the way you fought, the way you got around the city, everything was going to be the same. Now, there are some things that are the same, but there are so many changes that are just perfect. So, same city, obviously. You're still in New York, you're still in Manhattan, and it's the same city, but it's a different setting. And it's like Christmas time, and there's snow everywhere, and it looks freaking awesome. There's Christmas decorations all over. It's a really cool setting for this particular story. I really liked how they were able to kind of change the time of year for New York and Manhattan and make it look fantastic, and I love it. I think it's awesome. It's a well done decision because it is the exact same New York that we played in Spider-Man 2018. However, the Spider-Man is not the same Spider-Man, okay? Like I said, I was worried that it was just going to be, you know, slap Miles Morales' suit on it and call it a new Spider-Man, but Miles plays so dramatically differently from how Peter does in Spider-Man 2018. I was super excited to see it. He fights differently. The way his combos work are different. The way he swings around the city, everything about the way he looks and plays is different, and I love it. Especially when you take into account, you know, the additional powers that Miles Morales has over Peter Parker, you know, like the Venom powers and the camouflage powers. All of these things really change up how this game plays versus the original game, and I am very happy because I didn't want this game to be just a reskin. I wanted this to be its own thing, and it did it so well. Now, the story is short, admittedly. It's very short. I beat the game twice. I just beat it for the second time for my New Game Plus playthrough so I could get the Platinum Trophy last night. And I think I speed ran the story in like 2-3 hours. Like, it is incredibly short. Like, if you're just running through it, it's very quick. But in your first playthrough, at least if you're like me, you're going to be doing a lot of the side objective stuff. And my first playthrough probably took me around 8 hours. And that is a fair chunk of time, in my opinion, for what this game was meant to be. They said it wasn't going to be a full, you know, full Spider-Man game. It was going to be kind of its own thing, its own spin-off type deal. And then maybe later we get more Miles and like a more full game. But I really appreciated how short this story was and how good this story was. Because like I said, it was very short, like 3 hours if you're just rushing through it. But the way that they were able to develop these characters was so damn good in that small amount of time. You get to interact with all of these different characters and you get emotionally attached to a lot of these characters. And then the big plot points along the way this game had as an emotional an ending as Spider-Man 2018, and I was very surprised they were able to get me as invested as I was in these brand new characters that I spent a lot less time with, get me as invested in them as I was in characters like, you know, Dr. Octavius. Like, obviously we knew Dr. Octavius was going to become Doc Ock by the end of that game. However, the emotion between Peter and Dr. Octavius at the end of that game was huge. And then seeing them be able to recreate that in a smaller amount of time in Spider-Man Miles Morales with the Tinkerer and Miles was fantastic. I thought it was so well done, and I couldn't believe it. And it left me with tears in my eyes, the ending of this game. And it hit just as hard the second time through for my New Game Plus playthrough. Now, I will say, admittedly, that there is not as big a rogue gallery as there was in Spider-Man 2018. Like, in 2018, we fought Kingpin, we fought Rhino, we fought Martin Lee, we fought Scorpion. You know, we fought everybody in that freaking game. This game, you get Rhino. That's the real big one, and then you get a couple new additions from different groups along the way. There's Roxxon as well as the Underground. And you get this new big bad, the Tinkerer, that isn't really like, you know, a well-known big bad Spider-Man character like, you know, your Rhino or your Electro, things like that. You get this kind of minor villain, but I appreciated it because this wasn't like, you know, a Spider-Man that was well-developed like Pete was in Spider-Man 2018. This was Miles' first outing as Spider-Man. At the start of the game, you're training under Peter, and then Peter has to go on a trip somewhere, and then you take over as New York's only Spider-Man. And this is kind of like the origin story for Miles, him learning what it means to be Spider-Man and the responsibility that that is. And I think it's so well done, giving them kind of this smaller scale in terms of, like, you know, the grandeur of these enemies, but then a huge impactful story like this. I think it's an awesome origin story for Miles, and I'm super ready for a sequel to this particular game. I want to see more of Miles and see what else Miles is going to come up with, because you do get a couple additional characters along the way that's from Miles' Rogue Gallery, like the Prowler and things of that nature, so that was really cool to see as well. Now, there are some new gameplay mechanics, which I did appreciate here as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the camouflage stuff, which makes stealth play a whole lot more fun than it was in the original game. You get the Venom powers, which is super cool, and you get a couple additional gadgets that Peter doesn't have that you're able to use, and I like that as well. You get just a couple different things that really makes Miles feel different than Peter, and I appreciate that. And there are some quality of life stuff, like just sometimes, as good as Spider-Man 2018 web slinging felt, there was an occasional, you know, hiccup here and there, and I feel like they've really ironed that out with Miles Morales, and it's just super well done here. And I think it's just a vast improvement over what Spider-Man 2018 was in terms of the web slinging and things of that nature. Now, the soundtrack is also killer in this game. Like, it's super good. You can definitely tell a lot of things in this game had inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse. There was definitely a lot of inspiration there because of the success of that movie and this being the exact same character. But the soundtrack is well done here. It pays homage to that, in my opinion. I think it's very similar the way the soundtrack was picked and displayed throughout the game. And it doesn't hit as hard as Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack, but it is a very good soundtrack nonetheless. So I was pleasantly surprised with all the music that would keep popping up throughout the game, and I loved it. All the side objectives also were a ton of fun. They were less side objectives than there were in Spider-Man 2018, but again, this was a shorter game. It was supposed to be smaller in scale. It doesn't surprise me, and I felt like there was plenty to do there, especially being that this game came as quickly as it did. I felt it was perfect amount, because otherwise you'd get, you know, too much Spider-Man. As different as Miles is, you don't want to kind of oversaturate with this location. You want to make people want more, and that is exactly what this game does. All in all, Spider-Man Miles Morales is freaking awesome. I loved it. It is a great origin story for Miles, seeing him become his own Spider-Man and take on his own set of enemies without Pete over his shoulder was super cool. Awesome soundtrack, definite improvements over the gameplay of Spider-Man 2018, and it leaves you craving more, especially the post-credit scene. It leaves you wanting more from that universe, and I'm really ready to see what happens with Spider-Man 2. I'm curious if they're going to do a back and forth scenario where you play part of it as Peter and part of it as Miles. I'm very curious as to what they do there, and I'm looking forward to Spider-Man 2 even more than I was previously now. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you found it entertaining and helpful. If you did, leave a like and smash that subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. Check out the Discord. People over there playing games all the time. Check out Enter the Chat, my other channel where I do videos like this with my buddies Toby and Rico, and we just talk games and everything like that over there. It's a lot of fun. We have a podcast, all that good stuff. So check that out. And then check me out over on Twitch, TikTok, and all my other social medias if you're interested in keeping up with me, this channel, stream, or anything like that. Like I said, that's it for this one, and hope to see you all in the next video.